Hello and welcome to the Athletics Office podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Weaver, with my co-host, Coach RC, and we're going to continue our series on what do coaches wish parents knew, or another way to look at it is what do coaches wish they could tell parents. And, the questions we're going to answer is what extra events go on in a program and what does it look like for coaches on the time commitment and things like that. And then also, coaches, what would you share with parents about the impact of these events? Both again, time, the effort that's put into them, and everything. So let's jump in talking about really more of an extension of practice. This is not necessarily an extra event, but it is more than just the practices and the games, and that is the weight room. So what talk about what that looks like for your program, kind of as you go throughout the year, and just the time commitment that takes.
Well, the weight room is a very important piece to athletics now. Back 15, 20 years ago, even when I was in high school, we didn't lift a ton like for baseball. That's something that is somewhat newer. It's not just specialized in football, but almost every sport is lifting consistently now. So our weight room schedule looks somewhat like during the fall period, we lift after school. So it's a normal practice time for us, but it's only about 30 to 45 minutes of us lifting. So it looks like that for us right now. Once we get into the season and we start practicing a little bit longer and we get to that December 1st date, we'll start lifting after we actually do our field practice. So we'll practice for about an hour and a half to hour 45 minutes, and then we'll go into the weight room after that and lift for another 30, 45 minutes. So kind of makes a long day, not only for players, but for coaches too, that have to be there at 7 o'clock to teach and do things like that. So it makes the day a little bit longer, takes a little bit more time away from your family. But then once we move into the spring, we'll probably start lifting in the mornings. So that means 6:15 lifts. Then not only is that a grind for the players, because we're probably going to lift on a day that we play on. So we'll lift at 6:15 in the morning, go to school all day, and then get ready for a 5 o'clock start for a baseball game.
Wow.
So all those things kind of start adding up as far as time goes, not only just for the player, but for the student or for the coach as well. That's more time away from their family. That's usually about that time where you wake up, your kids are still asleep, wife's still asleep maybe. You go, don't see them during the day, and then you may see them at the game because they're going to come by, say hi, and they stay for a little bit, then they go home, and they're asleep when you get home.
Yeah.
So those parts of the weight room and just time commitment in general, thinking about that is an extra event added on in itself, depending on what time of year you're in.
Yeah, and we also want to address, so we're in that right now. We lift in the morning. It has been 3 days a week, and then we do our practices. By the way, those of you who have a weightlifting hour during your school day, blessed are you, because that just, again, it's great when it's in the school day and it's not this extra time. But, for us, we're having to lift, we're lifting 3 days a week right now. And then now that we're getting into scrimmage season, it's 2 days a week, and we'll do 2 days throughout the year. But it also impacts parents, right? So if you're a parent who has a high school kid that's going to come to an early lift, but then you have some younger kids, you may have to run that kid to the lift, come back, and then help get your younger kids ready. And so, this is one of those things that, does impact all three of these roles that we're speaking to: the parents, the players, and the coaches. But yeah, it can make for a long day. You get the lifting done, you go to school all day, then you go to practice and those type of things. But again, it's it's like a baseline cost, right?
Yeah.
If you want some success at any level, you want to make sure that you're putting some time in the weight room. So let's move on to, another extra event, which, this happens once or twice a year, depending on how you treat your high school and middle school programs, but parent meetings. We have our parent meeting coming up soon, and we're going to spend time kind of laying out the expectations and all those things, but, just kind of talk about, parent meetings, when you try to schedule it, and just kind of what that adds on to the schedule of your year.
So as in my time coaching, I've had parent meetings structured differently. So when I was in public school, we had our parent meeting at the very beginning of the year because it was a bigger school. I usually had the majority of my athletes from day one.
Yep.
Then being at OCS, the school is a little smaller. We share athletes a lot, so we want to be conscious of not doing my parent meeting before basketball's had theirs or football's had theirs. So taking that into account, the way our parent meetings are structured are for baseball. We usually do our high school meeting at a parent's house, and it's kind of a time for us to get together, just talk. Our freshman parents get to meet our older parents that have been in the program for a little bit. They get to ask questions, things like that. And then I have my little spiel where we go over expectations and different events that are going to happen throughout the year. Like we're traveling to Little Rock, we're going to this tournament, we're going to that one. These are how many guys I'm going to take. This is the expectation when we travel, things like that. Then I've also had a parent meeting where we stack them, where high school goes first, then middle school goes after.
Yep.
And we try to keep those really brief and short and to the point and be direct. But I think sometimes in those meetings, you can't get the questions asked that parents really want to ask because you're trying to get the next meeting in and be conscious of parents' time because they are coming up on a Tuesday night at 6 o'clock,
Right.
So those are things that we're kind of conscious of with the parent meeting, but we also have something similar to that, like a work day that we have throughout. We have a couple work days throughout the year where our parents come and our players too, they help us work on our field and our facilities, as far as like if we need stuff painted, if we need stuff hung up, things like that. And we'll also have kind of not a technical parent meeting, but we'll still have like a get together, and that's usually on a Saturday. So that's another day that parents are coming up, that coaches are coming up, that players are coming up, that it's just an added time, but it's beneficial to our program because it helps our facilities look top notch at the beginning of the year and throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think about we have, including our middle school, we'll have over 100 athletes in our programs this year. And obviously, if you're a bigger school, you may have more, smaller school. And even when I was at a bigger school, I was at a 6A school, we were just responsible for the high school. But when you're at a smaller school, you've got a lot of impact and influence over your middle school as well. And so there's a lot of athletes there, and you're trying to get everybody on the same page, and you're trying to do it in a meeting. And especially once you've been here, like this is year 11 for me at OCS, some parents have been to these meetings year after year after year. And obviously you're hitting on some of the same things, but there's some change. And so it is an important time.
Yeah.
It is something that the coaches are putting a lot of thought into on, okay, how do I want to address all these different things? Because, what time should practice in? What time's the weightlifting? How are we traveling to games? Is everybody traveling? Is everybody suiting up? And excuse me, we're trying to answer all these questions. And what we do in basketball that I think is a little bit different is we do a 1 hour practice where we invite parents in our middle school up to just see how high school practice works. Now, obviously, normally we're practicing a couple hours, but we condense it to 1 hour. And we want to kind of show off our athletes and just how hard they work, how coachable they are. So we invite all of our parents up, all of our middle school athletes to be able to watch that for an hour. And then we send our middle school players and our high school players over into a separate gym while we do the parent meeting at the end of that. And so it's just a great time to kind of build community. We always bring parents out of the stands and let them shoot free throws at the very end. And if they miss, we run the kids because, for those parents who are like, well, how you miss those free throws? Those are the easiest shots. We give an opportunity. And if they make them, hey, they can tell their kid that throughout the year. But if they miss, it's kind of hard to sit there in the car afterwards and say, I can't believe you missed that. And it's like, well, you got a chance too. And so anyway, just a time to build community. But that's just another thing, to plan for, to be able to execute well, to make sure that we get all the information out there as much as possible, have everybody on the same page. So let's now move to team dinners. And this looks different in each sport. Some people do weekly, some will do once a month, some will only do special events. But, what do team dinners look like for baseball, and just what are your thought process on them?
Well, with baseball, we don't have a ton of team dinners.
Yeah.
I'm old school in this. Like, you'll hear me reference sack nasties a lot. If you know what a sack nasty is, you're a real one. Okay.
Go ahead and explain that. You can't leave them hanging.
So a sack nasty is a sandwich, usually like ham and cheese or something like that. It could be PB&J, whatever you want. Bag of chips, you put it in a brown bag. That's what you're eating on the way to a
Oh, we've
game.
got to have gourmet meals. These
Yeah.
kids, you know.
So like, and it's something that for me, you don't want to lose focus of that, like, because you can get wrapped up in all these things of like, hey, we want to have this for our kids, we want to have this for our kids, we want to have this for our kids. But for me as a coach, I want to prepare that student athlete to be in college, right? And every college ain't built that way, where they're
So
getting
you
all
make them
these
ramen noodles, and then you.
right. Every college is not getting built, like your big Power Four conferences and things like that, getting all these catered meals and things. So we don't have a ton of team dinners with baseball. Our parents serve us in other ways, as far as like they'll bring us meals before games. This year we're actually gonna cut back on a lot of the meals because we would have extra food sitting, just because our boys they would get full, and then the rest is just there.
Yeah.
So team dinners for us looks a little different. And I know in like football, they have team dinners on Thursday nights. And I know they've kind of cut back on some of those this year, because it is an added time that parents are having to get food prepared, and then coaches are having to spend extra time away from their parents, which football coaches, more power to you guys, are like, it's a 7-day-a-week grind with football coaches. So just being able to understand that's kind of how our team dinners look. We don't have a ton of them, like maybe that work day team dinner and then our parent get together team dinner. That's really what ours boil down to.
Yeah. And I do want to address that for, maybe we have some of our football parents who are watching, because that was kind of a conversation at the beginning of this year. So normally the way it works is our football teams would have Thursday night team dinners, and obviously they'd be playing Friday. And really on Friday, the kids wouldn't go home. I mean, we've got a post-school pre-game meal for them on Friday as well. And so really we were just trying to give them more margin, spend time with family on those nights. So we asked, our football team to let's scale back. Let's have, 4 or 5 team dinners, which it's kind of worked out. We've had a lot of Thursday night games this year. But because, if you're a freshman or sophomore, you could be playing a JV game on Monday night, team meal on Thursday night, and then game on Friday night, and you're back up there on Saturday. So it's just a lot of time. So it's just trying to spread that out a little bit, give them some margin to be able to be with their families. Thankfully we've got a great community that loves preparing food, that loves serving and doing those things. So that wasn't the issue at all. But just team dinners in general, here's the perspective that I wanted to share on this point was, parents love being able to interact with the teams, right? To see all the players there, and they don't get to do that at practice, right? They're not coming into the weight room, right? So those are the times that just coaches and players are impacted by those times. And so team dinners are a way for the community to get together, to parents to serve the teams. But when parents ask of those team dinners often, now that's an additional time. So again, to go back to our example of, if you've got weight room at 6 a.m. and then you've got school and then you've got practice and then now you've got a team dinner that night, that's a full day now for a coach and for those athletes to be able to put in that time to do that. And so it's just something that our parents, I feel like, need to be aware of. And, those can be great times, but it's also coming at the expense of something. It's coming at the expense of some family time for those parents and their athlete. It's coming family time for the coaches. So it's just something to be able to be aware of. So, okay, so let's talk. So next up, we pictures and media day. So I'll talk about basketball first. So pictures, you got to schedule team pictures. We have someone that is at our school who's in charge of the pictures. We take individual and we take team pictures, and it takes an evening to do. Some schools even give up practice time to do that, but we practice, guys shower, and then we come out and we do our team pictures. And so that's another evening that you're up there. And then we do a media day, which a lot of schools are doing now. We have Eric Gomez, our sports information coordinator, one of the best in the nation, we'll say, who does some kind of action shots, and we call it the cube. We use the cube and put them in there, and it gets some really cool shots for some graphics for social media, for some intro videos and things like that. So again, that's more time that the athletes are having to spend up there and the coaches. So anything to add to that for pictures and media day?
I mean, For me, and just in general, one broad scope here. Pictures are fantastic. They're great memories, but I think sometimes parents get caught up in that of like, oh my gosh, the picture, the picture, the picture, it's not done, or we might have missed this person, we might have missed this person. At the end of the day, like the players are the ones that are like really, um, that's what the memory is for that player, right? That's why we do the pictures. That's why we do all these media days and these big things that I think are awesome, you know. But then sometimes on the flip side, you catch grief from parents of like, man, why'd you guys wear that uniform, or why'd you wear this uniform? At the end of the day, it's not really their decision, right? But like I think pictures are great keepsakes. I'm glad at the way that we do it here, because at my other school it was a practice day and I hated picture day, like despised it, because I was like, it's usually on the best day that we've had in a while.
Yeah.
Sun's out, it's beautiful, we could really get some work in, and we're spending that time taking pictures for 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know, so I think the way that we do it at our school is really really good. If you need some tips, email my guy over here.
Eric.Gomez at saints.org is what it is. But, you know, on that note, I can remember my son, he's in middle school, and probably when he was a 6th or 7th grader and was taking pictures, he wanted to wear like this. He saw all of our high school boys wearing their chains and you know, their crosses and things like this. Well, he didn't have one of those, so he wears like a seashell necklace. Okay, in his pictures, I'm like, what are you thinking? And of course, I'm not frustrated with the photographer. I'm just like, what, you know, my son, like, what are you doing? I mean, they want to wear all the things, right? And, you know, a couple of mistakes that I made, you know, so, you know, it's tough because we're taking pictures before we have all of our athletes, right? Most of our guys, some of them are still in football. So when they come to picture, you're having to take a freshman picture, which is easy, but a JV, a varsity, who's suiting up for what? Well, you know, I've got some guys in the gym right now, but some guys that are going to come from football who are going to be varsity. So as a coach, it puts you in this tough spot of who's going to be in what picture and then who's going to go to media day. Yeah. So this year, a big mistake that I made was, hey, we're only going to bring our seniors to media day. Well, that kind of stinks for the juniors, right? They want to take those cool pictures and be a part of those cool graphics and everything. So the next day I go back and I tell them, like, well, actually I was out of town for a couple of days, but the next time I saw them, I told them, okay, we're going to set up a time for the juniors to do it. Well, of course, when you do that, well, what about the sophomores? Yeah. What about the freshmen, right? There's always these decisions you're making as a coach where, you know, you're having to say who's going to be involved and who's not, right? It's not just playing time. It can even apply to pictures and media day. And so that's another thing that not only is there time for, but there's this decision-making process that goes into it and this effort that's given. And with every one of those, you could, you know, it could impact kids negatively. They could really take that as a hit, right? Yeah. Why am I not suiting up for varsity? I feel like I've been doing really well. And so and those things we know as coaches are going to work themselves out during the season. But also, again, you have the pictures that are there. Or the point
of, like, I've been here all fall long, or, you know, why am I not getting to go with this group? Yeah.
Well, and, you know, and it's like we know that we've got some really good players out there in football that are going to come help us. But I also don't want to punish them for playing another sport because we want them to be able to play another sport. So we can go into that into more detail. But actually, we skipped over with team dinners banquets. So banquets, you know, here at OCS, we do a banquet for each sport at the end of their season. And it can be, you know, it's supposed to be a celebration of the season, no matter if you won a state championship or just won a few games. You know, you want to celebrate the effort that those kids gave. But, again, it's another night. It's more planning, food, venue, facility that you're going to use. There's a lot of thought process that goes into it, working with parents to be able to set that up. And, again, we're blessed to be in a community like that. You know, there's definitely some cons, which are, you know, if you've got a kid who didn't play as much, or, you know, their parents are frustrated with you, there's times where it can make for an awkward evening.
Very.
And really, as coaches, we just want to handle that professionally. And it's like, you know, I really love all these kids, and even if a kid didn't play, or if I got on them quite a bit, or whatever that looks like, but we want to celebrate those times anyway. And what I share with our coaches is, it's an opportunity to show maturity and professionalism in a tough environment if that's the case.
Yeah.
Obviously, a couple of years ago when we were fortunate enough to win state, it was a great celebration.
Yeah.
Right. But we've had other years where we've had some tough ends to our season. And, we want to celebrate that. We want to, in our case at a Christian school, we pray over our kids. We allow our seniors to speak. I know that's a hot take for some people. I've talked to other coaches, and they're like, no, I would never let my seniors speak because I don't know what they're going to say, and I don't want them to say anything terrible. We let our seniors speak, and they do a really good job. But again, more time, more planning, and also another opportunity for, some negative encounters. But I think it's a big thing for, again, to show appreciation for your coaches and your coaching staff, to show up, to be a part of that, to show support for all the athletes that were involved. I think is another way that we can kind of put aside our selfish desires and just think about the bigger thing. And look, if you're only involved in athletics, obviously we want this success individually, but if you're only involved in athletics, as long as your kid is getting what they want, is doing well, is playing, all that stuff, we're really missing how athletics can shape us. I mean, for instance, I've had some kids who have gone through a season-long injury, been out the entire season. Well, I want to celebrate that kid for sticking with it, because that's very difficult to be able to do. Or there's all these other things, the pieces of adversity that can come up, and you want to celebrate those things.
Right.
So, give us your thoughts on banquets and just what that looks like too in baseball.
So, banquets I love banquets. I may sound sometimes like I'm like, oh my gosh, we got to have a banquet. But I enjoy them. I've been at a school where we've had our banquet at the beginning of the season, which is like it's a kickoff to the season. Let's have a great year. Let's have these expectations and things like that. And remember, like, seniors, this is your last hurrah. Like, give it all you got, right? The go get one speech, right?
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoy that. But then I've also learned to enjoy the banquet at the end of the year too. The celebration of the season, the celebration of those players. Like you said, you've been a part of some seasons that have been not great. Like, I've been a part of seasons that are not great. And there's always that time where you think back and you're like, hey, listen, it's not about the wins and losses right now. Like, it's about celebrating our kids. Mm-hmm. And like you said, having your senior speak. I tried it this last year. Mm-hmm. It surprised me. It went really well. Yeah, like, they thought about what they wanted to say to the younger kids in our program. And I think that's very vital to the sustainability of your program and the culture that your program is developing. So I enjoy banquets. Sometimes I may say around the office, like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? But I enjoy banquets, and it does give coaches an opportunity to be professional and show that professionalism, because you are going to have some parents that are not going to be very happy with you. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, as long as you're supporting and you are kind of giving that kid like that outlet, saying like, oh yeah, little Isaiah did work really hard. Yeah. This is what I saw from him throughout the year, because when in our banquet, I talk about each class. And then when I get to my seniors, I kind of have, a little bit more individual points that I'm going to talk about with them, and even highlight some things that they've done well throughout the season, not just on the field, but as a leader in our program. Yeah. So that's one thing. That's how we kind of handle banquets and my thoughts on it.
Well, one thing, so when we first got to OCS, I think only a couple of teams were having banquets. And our basketball team, I don't believe, was one of them. And so, I actually asked my assistant, who's still my assistant, Trevor Davis, man, should we have this banquet? And he said, well, if we ever won state, would we have a banquet? Will we celebrate that? And I said, well, yeah, of course. And he was like, well, then I think you do it every year. That way you're celebrating. Now the flip side of that is, once you do a team dinner for a specific thing, and if you don't do it the next year, it's like, well, we did it last year. Why wouldn't we do it this year? So you kind of have to be careful of those as well. The other thing I appreciate is, I have some tremendous assistant coaches. I'm really blessed, and Trevor Davis and Jared Merrill's our freshman coach, and Alfred Jackson is assistant coach for us. And to hear our seniors stand up and be able to talk about them and their thankfulness for them and the appreciation, like, that does so much for coaches. And again, one of our purposes is teaching everyone here, and the parents, the players, the coaches, on how to create a positive environment in the athletic space. If you can go into a banquet and as a coach feel appreciated, not that you got every decision right, not that, you even made, you made a lot of mistakes, but when you feel appreciated by your community, that's the biggest needle mover for a coach to sustain.
Yeah.
And again, it's getting harder and harder to find coaches who want to pour into these kids for the sake of pouring into them, not just for the wins and losses.
Right.
And so we want to keep them around. And the last thing you want a coach asking is this worth it? If I'm doing all these things, all of these extra things, I'm planning, I'm taking time away from my family, I'm doing all this, and I'm still getting to the end of the year and people are not appreciative of that. And we're just talking about words, a thank you card.
Yeah.
I've had parents, come up and be like, man, I'm so thankful that Coach Jackson opened up the gym on the weekends. That really, helped my kid, and he got in the gym, he got some extra shots up, those type of things. And so being able to hear those guys say that is huge. I mean, I can't even describe how big of a lift that is, but if you go into those and parents don't give you eye contact, and or parents don't show up, and those type of things, it just makes it really difficult for those who are putting in that much time and that much planning.
Not just for the coach, but for the kid too.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's move on to our next one. So community service projects. I feel like you guys do a much better job than us. So I want you to kick this one off, kind of what that looks like and just what that adds.
Community service projects are things that, being at a Christian school, I think that's what we're called to do, is serve, right? And we talk about leadership a lot within our sports teams, right? And to be an ultimate leader, you gotta know how to serve, right? And serve others well. So we do community service projects, and those kind of look differently throughout the year. I would constitute us going to go support another sport as a community service project. I remember a couple years ago, you guys were making that run, and the guys were like, "Coach, are we going to the game tonight?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's get on the bus." And we just took a bus and we drove to Ada. We got down there, watched the game. We got there in like the second quarter because we left a little late, but
it's like an hour and 45-minute drive, just for those of you who don't know.
We got there and we supported, and our guys were loud, and that was one thing that we talked about before we even left, was like, hey, we're not going to just go sit in the stands and hang out. Like, we're going to go support our basketball players, because those guys are going to support you.
Yeah.
So like that's one type of community service project that we've done. We also there's another one that we're going to do this year. We're going to go out to the tree farm, and we're going to unload a tree truck. So I heard it's a humbling experience unloading those trees off that tree
Hopefully
truck.
Hopefully you're giving them the weight room off that day.
Yeah, we won't lift that day. They'll get their lift in out there at the tree farm. But that's one thing that we're going to do. And kind of I would say, like, summer camp for us is a community service project. Our players get to turn in their community service form for working in that time. But summer camp is a huge piece of, like, service, because you have kids that are in kindergarten all the way up through 5th grade that are
running amok.
Yes, running amok. And it's insane out there. And we're on a baseball field. It's usually July when we do it. Don't ask why I do it in July, but we do it in July. It's hot. Kids are running around. They're just like, it's hot. I'm like, it's 9 o'clock. You just got here. Like, but it's a really humbling experience for our high school players to be able to work with those little kids and give back, because somebody was teaching them, and they were going to a summer camp one time. So those are what the community service projects look like for us. We also have our school-based community service projects that we do too. But
I mean, even on the summer camp thing, we had a football game the other night, and there was a young man who came to our camp, and he's actually at another school, and he was standing by me where I could hear him talking to his dad, and he was pointing out all the players. Like, I remember that guy from camp, and just the impact that our high school guys can have on on younger guys, and I'm so thankful for their help in that. But yeah, community service projects, and I'll just be transparent. I did a lot more of this before we had 5 kids. So we went to the city rescue mission. We did a lot of other things, taking them to kind of get them out of the school bubble and to get them not just serving, but to see, the struggles of other people and how we can serve and help in that situation. And then also just the blessing that we get. I mean, we would serve in those capacities, and then you would leave and just, you would feel so blessed by having this conversation with somebody who is extremely appreciative, even though they're in a difficult part of their life. And just the blessing that is. But again, that's another thing to plan for, to bring transportation to just make sure that you execute the logistics of all those things, and then obviously executing the plan for it. But they're huge. I mean, they can be more impactful than the practices and the games and those type of things that they're learning. So,
going back into that, like, we're coming up to the holiday seasons.
Yep.
Right. So an easy community service project that we did last year is we just sponsored a couple families from our church. And we're lucky to have great parent involvement at our school. So all I had to do was get a list of, like, I told those families, I was like, what do you guys want?
Yeah.
And they were very open, and somebody wanted a bike. They wanted a game system and this and that. And, like, we were able to provide them with almost everything that they asked for. And that's just an easy way to give back, just like you were just talking about.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to fundraisers. Again, we talked about in a previous episode how at OCS we don't necessarily do team-by-team fundraisers, but we've been at other schools, and I remember a previous school I was at, we did the discount cards.
Yeah.
We'd have one day where we would go to multiple neighborhoods, and we would sell the discount cards kind of as a one-time thing. But then after that, we needed, to sell so many.
Right.
And so if they didn't sell it that day, then they had to continue. But again, executing that, usually we did it on a Saturday, right? That was another day that they're having to go out there for those who have done car washes and things like that. Thankfully, we don't have to do it as much anymore, but talk about your previous experiences with fundraiser and just the planning of that.
Those fundraisers are grinds, especially selling cards, because not only are you trying to put these kids in groups to go out and sell the cards, but you also want to make sure that, hey, are you guys safe when you're going out?
Right.
So usually there's a coach somewhere following a group, or knowing where they are, trying to stay in communication. So that's another added time that they're away. Then we also would do like a ham fundraiser. So we get honey baked hams. You got to package them all. Like I know some schools that smoke all the meat and then package them, then send them out.
Yeah.
Like that's not just a one-day process. That's multiple days that they're doing that. Just to bring in some money for their programs. There's also other schools that, if you've ever had this done before, I get it from our college players now. They send these little text messages or emails out, hey, will you donate to school of this or whatever? And it's like, bro, you hit me up again? Like, you just hit me up last time. And then not only is that just one person, but that's multiple people hitting you up for that. In my head, I'm like, oh, that's cool, they're thinking about me. But then I'm like, y'all are using me, man.
Bad thing is if that's the only time you ever hear from them, right?
That's even worse. I'm like, nope. So those are all different kind of fundraisers that kind of go into that, but the time that it takes on the back end of, like, nailing all this stuff down, then incentivizing the players to actually do the fundraiser, like, hey, guys, this is actually going to help you all. So you have to put incentives on it for high school kids. Like, when I was at a previous school, we gave away a custom bat or a custom glove for whoever donated or whoever raised the most money. So that's another added cost that we kind of taken out of that fundraiser to pay for this. So there's a lot of things that go into that.
When you can't incentivize them with playing time, right? It's like,
No.
hey, whoever sells the most, you get the most playing time, or you
That's
start.
true.
You know,
That's true.
It gets
Because
tricky.
if that was the case, boy,
Yeah.
we'd be in
Yeah.
we'd be in some trouble.
Yeah.
But like you have that, and then even at another school, there's incentives on fundraisers of like most teams are going to condition when they get back from a break.
Yeah.
So if you hit a certain target, you wouldn't have to be a part of that conditioning
Right.
when you get back.
Yeah.
So that's another incentive that they can use. And then I want to kind of speak on our fundraisers that we do here at OCS through our Booster Club program. And we have 2 fundraisers that we do, one in the fall and one in the spring. The one that we did this fall was a pickleball tournament, which is going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of teams that came out this year that played in it. It's a community type event where we can bring people, and especially to our athletic center that we're in right now.
Yep.
We've only had it for a little over a year. So it just gave our community a chance to be able to see the inside and see what it looks like and be here. And then we have our golf tournament in the spring, and that also brings in a good amount of money for our athletic programs and our co-curriculars on campus. So when you do those 2, like I'm very grateful to be a part of that and not having to be like, oh my gosh, what fundraisers are we going to do for baseball this year? You know, because that's just another added time commitment that it's like, oh my gosh, I got to think about this as well as I got to think about who am I going to play at short?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
or am I going to get my practice in this day because we got to go out and sell these fundraiser cards?
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, just shout out to our booster club. I mean, because you obviously have a lot to do with our booster club, but we usually have some volunteers within our booster club who run those events,
Yeah.
right? Who are kind of the point person for those events.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is they don't say, well, if I'm doing this, my kid better get this much playing time.
Right.
Or, we've all kind of been in those situations before where people want to be involved so that they can have more influence. And in my time here at OCS, I'm thankful that we've had some just incredible, mainly dads that are serving in that capacity, but they're not holding it over your head as a coach or as an athletic director. So let's jump to our next one. So our next one is, now part of this is during the day, so like assemblies during the day. And that's not necessarily more of a time commitment, but you definitely have to think. I mean, I speak at some of our assemblies as the athletic director, and you better not leave out a sport. You better not leave out an extracurricular group. If you point out a sport, you better know what's going on in that sport. You better, not miss. If you're going to point out players, you better not miss those players. So I didn't do as good a job at this at the beginning. Now when I do it, I try to make sure that I'm including everybody and our middle school programs. Normally I'll have our middle school programs stand up and then talk about our high school. Actually, for some reason, I didn't speak at our fall one this year, but our football coach did. And so he had to be prepared, right, and to be able to shed some light on what's going on in the football season, also point out some other programs that are going on. And then the other one that we pointed out was signing day.
Yeah.
Signing day's coming up here soon, and then we'll have another one in February and then possibly another one in April. And it's a great time of celebration. Our sports all support one another, and we start practices late that day because we do it right after school so that as many people as possible can make our signing days. And so we start our practices later, but those of us who has an athlete signing, we speak on their behalf. We talk about them and just the growth and development that they've gone through and celebrate them. But again, that's another time that we have to be prepared in those moments to celebrate them properly and to give kudos, and also to their teammates that are standing in front of us, and then also a time commitment there. So talk about the impact of those two.
Well, I mean, I think signing day it's a huge event for that student athlete and their family. That kid's been working towards that the whole time. So as a coach, it really is vital for you to be prepared in that situation.
Yep.
And it does take time to be able to form your thoughts and be like, all right, I really want to make sure I highlight this kid's work and all the things that he's done or she's done to get to this process, to sign, and not just highlight the player, but highlight the parents, because it's a huge commitment for parents to be able to run them to this lesson, to run them to this practice, to do this. And they've been doing that for 18 years for the most part. You
Since
know,
birth.
since birth, man. Like
Yeah.
I know I had my kids. I'm like, hey, as soon as they're born, we are grinding,
Yeah.
right? And it hasn't paid off yet, but maybe eventually it will. You know. But signing day, that's what it's for. And I'm going to ask you a question here about signing day here in a second. But assemblies, like assemblies are huge things. I know we had, there's some coaches that I've talked to before that they used to have an assembly every Friday.
Yeah.
Like,
That ain't happening at OCS.
That ain't happening. But we know what it takes to put on a good assembly,
Yep.
right? And I think we do really, really good with those.
Our student council does an incredible job with
They
that.
do a great job with it. So our assemblies are really action-packed. They're going. They're fast-moving. They're really engaging. But it is an added time for the coaches and athletic director and Stuco and the Stuco president. Like, you have to plan all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So those are just added time, but events that are needed to promote school culture, positivity throughout all the athletic programs that we have.
Yep.
But going back to signing day, there's something that I really like with our signing days, and you do it at the end of every signing day when you talk about how the church sends out missionaries. Can you go into that really quick?
Yeah, so obviously it looks different for us at OCS as a private Christian school, but, so, at churches when we send out missionaries to the ends of the earth, as the Bible would say, we pray over them. I mean, I know at our church we'll have people kind of gather around them that are closer in relationship with them, and we pray for them, safety, guidance, wisdom, the opportunity to be able to share the gospel, all those things. And so we take that time kind of at the end of ours to pray over our student athletes and their families, because obviously it's a transition for their families too, just for all of the next steps. Now, we may be having a signing day in November and the kid's not leaving until May, but we're still going to pray over that they finish well for their senior year, but then also that they're given the opportunity with the sport that they have to share the gospel and to build connections. And, one of the things we point out is, when you go from high school and you've been going to church with your families all your life, and now you make that transition to college, that's one of the things that kids miss is finding a church home and finding connections there. And so we pray over that. And so that's something I think special that we do at OCS, and I'm sure other Christian schools do that as well. So let's move on to the last one, and that's summer events. So again, all of these events that we're pointing out are, hugely beneficial, very impactful, but they are additional to, in some ways, our main responsibilities as a coach of practices and those type of things and games.
Yeah.
And so, talk about summer events and what that looks like for you.
So summer events in general help promote and help build your programs during those times where you're not really competing. So like we compete in the spring as for baseball, but during the summer, we focus really on our middle school program a lot during the summer. They play a summer league, and it's like the end of May till the end of June. And it just gives those guys a chance to be able to play together, because we're getting our sixth graders that don't get to compete in sports during the school year to be able to play with our seventh graders who just finished a spring season. Mm-hmm. So now they're getting to mesh together. They're getting to play together. They're getting to talk to each other. They're getting to see each other on the field in a different kind of light than what they would see each other in the classroom. Then, like, just talking about football, they have 7-on-7, which is, I don't even know how many times they do that, but I know that van and that bus has gone a lot for 7-on-7s and team camps and stuff. So that's another added event or added time that coaches are putting in, also planning for. Because I know I don't coach our middle school team. My assistant coaches coach it. But I know they're not going out there just like, hey, we're just rolling the balls out. You guys go have a blast out there. No, they're teaching them because eventually those middle schoolers are going to be in our high school program, and we don't want our high school program to regress. We don't want to have a rebuilding year. We just want to have a reload. So that's kind of how the summer looks for baseball.
When
and
you're doing weightlifting times, right?
Oh yeah, we lift during the summer. We lift 3 days a week during the summer, and that's mainly for our high school guys. And in Oklahoma, we have a lot of high school guys that play travel baseball. So we do not do anything at the high school level baseball wise, because it's like pulling teeth trying to get guys to be there, and not knowing who's there and who is going to be there. So we do weights Monday through Wednesday during the summer, and that's throughout the summer until about dead week in July, and then we give them the rest of July off. But yeah, that's kind of how it looks for us.
Yeah, for basketball, I mean, we do spend a lot of time with our high school. Now, our guys play a lot of AAU basketball, and I'm thankful for AAU in a few different ways. One, that's a tremendous amount of time to spend with these kids. So we'll have our athletes go and play for these different AAU programs, and they're going to tournaments as early as April and May. And then I'm also thankful for those high school or those AAU programs that give their guys off time in June, because that's kind of the high school time.
Yeah.
And then they pick back up in July. So it can be a good relationship where they're getting coached in April and May, and then they come back to us in June and do summer leagues and team camps, and then back to them in July. And that's a ton of time. For those of you who coach AAU, ton of time. I did it 1 year, again, many kids ago. And man, it was just so much. After 1 year, I just told the guy, the head of the organization, like, I can't do this. I am gone. I mean, they're leaving on Thursdays through Sundays and maybe even longer. And then, they have practices and things like that throughout the week. So, I don't necessarily do all that. But for OCS, what that looks like is we'll go to a summer league here in town, and we'll play 10 to 12 games there. So those are on Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday nights. Not every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, but there's some games sprinkled in there. And then we obviously want to work with those of our guys who play football. So if they've got a 7-on-7, me and the football coach will talk, and hey, have them go to 7-on-7, or hey, and this time I need them for the numbers. And so we'll communicate. My one thing to coaches here is don't put that on the players. It doesn't need to look like me talking to the player and be like, hey, you better be there. If you want to play this year, you better be there. And then the football coach doing the same thing. It's putting the kid in a no-win situation. The better thing to do is for the adults in the room, myself and the football coach, to have an agreement like, hey, you take these guys, I'll take these guys, make sure that we have enough numbers just to be able to compete. Hey, this is not a big deal if they miss it, and we sacrifice in the summertime, which doesn't even matter as much, right, for the betterment of the kid. And so that's a huge thing that I think coaches need to do more of as kids, are trying to play multiple sports. But then we also go to team camps. We go to 2 team camps. We go to UCO here. It's on a Monday through Wednesday, and we play multiple games per day. It's kind of an all-day thing. And then we go to usually either OU, OSU, ORU, Tulsa, some of the bigger colleges here in the state. And again, that's usually like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then we have our little kids camps and those type of things. So there's a lot of work to be done. And on top of that, we have open gyms where Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday mornings we show up and we'll spend an hour just playing pickup and then an hour lifting, right? We can't practice in the summertime, but we just kind of open the gym and let them play. And so, that's a ton of time. So, for those who are like, oh, well, you get the summers off, you're in education. It's like, if you're a coach, especially, and teachers do a lot in the summer as well, planning and preparing for the next year and developing on their own. But coaches, there's a whole other season, really a whole other season that you're preparing for. So the last thing is I want to give an example just of this week, and not to say woe is me, but just to give, this is just something I'm going through right now, and just to give that picture to our parents. And if you're a basketball parent, you can kind of think, this will obviously air after all this whole week is finished. But you can kind of think back and like, okay, well, I knew that this was going on, but I didn't know about this. So Monday night, we had a scrimmage at home, right? So we had a scrimmage. Then there was also a JV football game going on that was able to stay and watch a little bit of that. And then on Tuesday night, we're taking our team in the evening after practice to the OSU versus ORU game, because we're thankful to have a former player, Luke Gray, who's playing at ORU. Want to take our team up there to support him. Probably the only game our entire team's going to be able to go to this year. And so we're going to go up there, support him, have dinner and all that. So that's Tuesday night. Wednesday night, there's an Oklahoma Coaches Association meeting at Choctaw where we may be nominating some of our coaches. So that's another evening, that we're gone. Thursday night is our parent meeting. So we'll have a practice, a 1 hour practice I talked about earlier, and then a parent meeting that night. So that's another evening. Now this gets into my AD duties, but Friday we have an away game at Mount St. Mary's. And so we'll be down there, and I mean, really, if I wasn't AD, I'd be down there anyway. It's a big game. Want to be able to support our teams. We'll have a lot of other coaches that are down there to support them. Then on Saturday, we have cheer regionals, game day cheer regionals at Crossings at 10 a.m. So we'll be going down there. And so, again, think about as a parent, okay, you'd know about the scrimmage. You'd probably know that we're taking the kids to the OSU game, and then obviously you know about the parent meeting. But then there are kind of some other events that are sprinkled in there that is still a lot of time that coaches are given on top of that. And that can be a pretty consistent thing for a lot of our coaches and what they're facing. So any finishing thoughts here?
I just think for everyone, teachers, coaches, parents, players, just be conscious of all the events that take place. And maybe show some grace here and there when something does slip through the crack. And as coaches, we don't like it when things slip through the crack. We want to be prepared. But every now and again that happens because we also have not only the 30 kids in our program that we're dealing with, but we may have 3 kids at home, a wife at home that we're having to deal with and having to balance and juggle those things. So every now and again, something may slip through the crack. And it's not because we want it to slip through the crack, it just happens. So just being conscious of the events and the planning and the preparation that goes into it, be conscious of that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And sometimes I talk to parents who are frustrated, and they'll see this one thing that happened, and they'll say, man, this was just bad communication, or this was, bad planning and things like that. And as a coach, we're trying to do so much. We're trying to, spin all these plates, and obviously our coaching staff should be helping out and all those things. But some of those things may drop. Now, if it's a consistent issue, if I'm doing a terrible job of communicating, then that's a challenge for me as a coach, because I've got to think through a parent lens too. Right? I mean, as a coach, we have to think through, how am I communicating this? Is everybody on the same page? I mean, going back to the pictures and media day, it took us a while to actually schedule it. Okay, so then I had it scheduled. I had sent it out, but I did not communicate that we were going to allow senior parents to take a picture with their son. So just like a day before, I sent a schedule out saying, hey, this is happening. Well, some parents were out of town, some parents were traveling, some parents were, had these other things that were going on. So I'm sure that was frustrating. Now, none of them reached out to me frustrated, which I'm appreciative of. But I'm sitting there like, man, I kind of missed the boat on that. And so there's just things like that as you're trying to think through and plan that are going to get dropped. And as coaches, we need to, again, make sure that we're communicating well, that we're doing the best job that we can, but then also as parents and players that we can give grace to that is just such a huge thing. So thank you again for joining us for this episode. Please like and subscribe. And you can, if you have any thoughts on any of these events, please leave it in the comments. And also, if you want to reach us or have any ideas for some episodes, I feel like right now we have a million ideas for episodes, and now it's kind of shrinking them down to what's next and kind of prioritizing. But we'd love to hear from you, and we have an email address at theathleticsoffice@gmail.com. And thank you again, and we hope that this has enlightened you on some of the things that are going on within each of our programs. And thank you for joining us. Looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.